are at Genesis chapter 11. We had just finished learning about kind of the descendants of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and how they all kind of have scattered and dispersed a little bit. There's division between like different tribes, and they're in different locations, and they all have these different languages and nations that they've established. And now we get to chapter 11, and the heading of this is the Tower of Babel. Now, here we go. At one time, the whole world spoke a single language, and used the same words. So it's saying at one time, that's the case. But we've already heard, just from Genesis 10, that there are all these different languages and tribes. So saying at one time, it's important to know, at one time they were all united in this single language. They used the same words. It's even giving kind of a point to certain words where you have like Peleg, meaning division, and Nimrod is this term that we use to say someone's like Nimrod. They're a mighty hunter. They are skilled. So just important, I think, to notice that. One time the whole world spoke as a single language and used the same words. Verse 2, as the people migrated eastward, they found a plain in the land of Babylonia, and they settled there. Now, remembering that Babylonia is something that Nimrod actually had, that's where he built the foundation for his empire. So this is a descendant of Ham, the one that was cursed by Noah. They began, so they found a plain in the land of Babylonia. They settled there, okay, as the people migrated. So it doesn't say which tribe, but you would assume at this point, you know, it says foundationally that was like the basis for Nimrod, a descendant of Ham. They began to talk about construction projects. Come, they said, let's make great piles of burnt brick and collect natural asphalt to use as mortar. So pretty skilled in building, and construction there. Interesting. So that shows some development of people over this time. But important that we notice where this is happening at verse 4. Let's build a great city with a tower that reaches to the skies, a monument to our greatness. Boy, that's going to be a mistake. A monument to our greatness. Okay, here we go. This will bring us together and keep us from scattering all over the world. So they actually have this good idea of unity, but they're pointing to themselves and their ability, which is, I think, going to be the downfall here. This will bring us together, keep us from scattering all over the world. They're like, we've been migrating all over the place. Let's make this the place, the city, with this towering this tower that goes into the skies, a monument to our greatness. Now, 5, but the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. This is big. So God comes down to see the city and the tower where the people were building. So the Lord came down. Again, this is an idea that the Lord is not just dwelling on earth. So you have the Lord coming down from the heavens, as we have not heard the term heaven yet, but we have heard heavens, and that the Spirit of earth, Spirit of God is hovering above. So we'll keep this. Look, he said, again with the he, if they can accomplish this when they have just begun to take advantage of their own common language and political unity. So it's saying they've only just begun. It's a short period of time, like hundreds of years have passed at this point. Well, that's not fair to say. A great time has passed. At least 3 generations, if I'm doing math right, have passed. So it's saying, short period of time, they've just begun, zooming out with God's perspective, to take advantage of their common language. The fact that one time this earth is speaking this single language, and they have this unity, they've got political unity. Just think of what they will do later. So God's thinking in advance, saying if they've done this now and they're hoping to build a monument to their greatness, trying to keep themselves from scattering all across the world, just think about what they're going to do later. And then he continues, nothing will be impossible for them. Nothing will be impossible for them if they all have the same, if they have this unity. Okay, that's a big deal. Really big deal. Verse 7, come, let's go down and give them different languages. then they won't be able to understand each other. So God, to kind of prevent this from happening and for them to attain this standard and this monument to their own greatness and from not scattering, he says, let's give them different languages. Then they won't be able to understand each other. In that way, the Lord scattered them all over the earth, and that ended the building of the city. So God says, hey, let's put a stop to this, and then he does. The Lord scatters them all over the earth, and obviously he confuses their language. That is why the city was called Babel, because it was there that the Lord confused the people by giving them many languages, thus scattering them across the earth. There is no longer that unity. Now there is Babel, confusion in talk and in languages. Like when a person is babbling, I wonder if that's where that comes from. Face value, I'll just say cool, even though it's spelled differently. It's easy to read this and go, Babel? Hey, are you from Babel? You look like you came from Babel. I don't know. So anyway, Babel. That's what wound up happening there. They were going to build a monument to their greatness, and to have this unity and this power and this ability. Nothing's going to be impossible for them, says the Lord, when he sees what they're doing. And he's like, look, we got to give them different languages. They need to be scattered. This is not going to be good. Because again, I think that it's not good here, reading on a surface thing, because that is a monument to our greatness. I think that was the sin there, and that's what God was trying to keep them from doing. We have unity, but if you get in unity, it's like this prideful unity, and it's this, you're going to worship yourselves and what you can do, and not me and what I can do and what I give you. That's what I'm reading into it. Again, that's just me reading into it. From Shem to Abram. This is when it goes here. This is the history of Shem's family. Shem, one of the favored brothers, one of the ones that was blessed by Noah there. When Shem was 100 years old, his son Arphaxad was born. This happened 2 years after the flood. Okay, so didn't waste time. That's good, following the Lord's command to multiply and fill the earth. After the birth of Arphaxad, Shem lived another 500 years and had other sons and daughters, which is interesting, because again, in previous chapters, God said, hey, people can't live as long as they are. I'm going to make sure that people don't live over 120 years. But these brothers were alive at that time. So if you were thinking, well, see, God was wrong, that goes against what he said. No, the brothers, the family of Noah that were going onto that boat were already in existence. So anyone born after that is the way that I read it. So we'll see what happens here if this 120 years thing sticks true, because that's something else that God has said. And God has said, and things were so far. So we'll keep going here. Shem lived another 500 years, had other sons and daughters, so he's continuing to multiply in this. When Arphaxad was 35 years old, his son Shelah was born. After the birth of Shelah, Arphaxad lived another 403 years and had other sons and daughters. Oh, so you see this generation, he lived over 120 years, that first generation. So that makes me question some things. So it makes me want to go back and read what God said exactly about 120 years. In chapter 6, the Lord said, my spirit will not put up with humans for such a long time, for they are only mortal flesh. In the future, they will live no more than 120 years. So I can't debunk that's saying, well, God said, and it wasn't here, because God said in the future. It didn't say immediately in the future, starting now. It just says in the future. So I tried disproving. You see, I'm trying to read this fresh and trying to hold it against everything that's come before. And that's the disclaimer that I'll give for that. So anyway, Arphaxad lived another 403 years and had other sons and daughters. 14, when Shelah was 30 years old, his son Eber was born. After the birth of Eber, Shelah lived another 403 years and had other sons and daughters. So you see again, a 400-year lifespan. But that is shorter than Shem, who lived 500 years. Eber was 34 years old. His son Peleg, which we learned before means division, was born. After the birth of Peleg, Eber lived another 430 years and had other sons and daughters. So Eber lived a little bit longer than Shelah, so it's not like it's whittling down exactly. When Peleg was 30 years old, his son Reu was born. After the birth of Reu, Peleg lived another 209 years and had other sons and daughters, so that was significantly lower. So now it's kind of whittling down a little bit there. When Reu was 32 years old, his son Serug was born. After the birth of Serug, Reu lived another 207 years and had other sons and daughters. So significantly less. You see a lifespan cut down by 200 years. Interesting. When Serug was 30 years old, his son Nahor was born. After the birth of Nahor, Serug lived another 200 years and had other sons and daughters. So around 230 years. When Nahor was 29 years old, his son Terah was born. After the birth of Terah, Nahor lived another 119 years and had other sons and daughters. I think it's interesting to note, you're seeing male descendants that are listed here. But it is quick to note they had other sons and daughters. So I think that that's important. All of these clans and tribes, they say tribes, sorry, all of these tribes and nations are being established, and they have this male name, this male head of the household. Noah was the head of that family. But it is quick to say every time that there's this multiplication, or you see descendants and then multiplying, filling the earth, you actually see that disclaimer there. Hey, sons and daughters are born. I just think that that's kind of important to note. I don't want to breeze past that idea. When Terah was 70 years old, he became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Okay, so Abram, try not to look ahead. Shem, Abram is in the line of Shem, is what we need to know. And that was one of the brothers who was going to be blessed. He's not the older brother. All right, cool. The family of Terah, at verse 27. This is the history of Terah's family. Terah was the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran had a son named Lot. Okay, so those three are brothers. Haran had a son named Lot. All right, but while Haran was still young, he died in Ur of Chaldeans, the place of his birth. So Haran was still young. One of these brothers, or sons of Terah, basically, he dies while he's still young. But he's survived by Terah, his father. Meanwhile, Abram married Sarai, and his brother Nahor married Milcah, the daughter of their brother Haran. So that's a cultural thing where, you have a widow, and then the next in line, brother-wise, would actually inherit her. That's a historical thing that I just happen to know, so I'll take that into the face value there. But if nothing else, we see it modeled right here. Milcah had a sister named Iscah. Now Sarai was not able to have any children. So Sarai is the wife of Abram. This is one of Terah's sons. Haran had died. Haran had a son whose name was Lot. Okay, so Haran dies young. Sarai is the wife of Abram, and she's not able to have any children. Terah, by the way, again, this is part of Shem's lineage. Terah took his son Abram, his daughter-in-law Sarai, and his grandson Lot, his son Haran's child, so this orphan, and left Ur of the Chaldeans to go to the land of Canaan. Now, we know that Canaan is significant, the land of Canaan, okay, because this would be Ham's descendants, the Canaanites, the ones who were cursed by Noah because of their father, Ham's dishonoring of Noah, his father. So they go into the land of Canaan, but they stopped instead at the village of Haran and settled there. Haran obviously had a village at that place. He died in Ur of the Chaldeans. They were headed to Canaan. They stopped instead at the village of Haran, and they settled there. Okay, so they didn't they were leaving to go to the land of Canaan, but they did not make it. They stopped before they got there. They settled in this village of Haran. Haran, again, I would assume the namesake of that village being that son of Terah out of the lineage of Shem. This is getting confusing, isn't it? Sorry. I'll put a chart down here if that makes sense, if you're interested. And yeah, let me know if you're interested. I'm not going to do that work if nobody's interested. If you're interested in that chart, I will gladly put it down. If you're not, then we'll just keep going and assume that we're all catching this. So yeah, they headed to go to the land of Canaan, which would have been the descendants of Ham, which Noah occurs to say would be servants of these people, basically. And you don't see them make it. They settle there. Terah lived for 205 years, and he died while still at Haran. Okay, Haran dying in Ur of the Chaldeans, which is where they were. So, things to note here. You just got, at the beginning of this chapter, you have this very significant intervention by God where he stops this building of this great tower that was supposed to be this monument to the greatness of people who at that time all had a single language, and they had that unity in thought and in desire and in practice. And God's like, nope, that's not good. They're going to be able to accomplish anything if they have this unity, and there's nothing dividing them. So then God actually brings this confusion in these different languages. Again, I'm reading into it thinking that is because they were leaning on their own understanding, their own ability, and they're also specifically worried about glorifying themselves, a monument to their greatness. This is not to God's greatness, and God is still the same God who deserves worship and offerings. You don't hear anything about worship and offerings going in at this point. You see them trying to worship basically themselves and their work. So that's why I think that's significant. One of the reasons. So, okay, cool. And then you get this interesting thing from Shem to Abram. We talked a little bit about the descendants of the brothers, the sons of Noah, kind of multiplying and filling the earth, and all these people and tribes and nations and languages kind of coming out of them. You see where the confusion and that division gets birthed from, God's intervention there, and I believe the why in that. And then you get this focus on from Shem to Abram. And that's what we spent the good chunk of this chapter talking about, to wind up saying, cool, Terah, one of these descendants, has Abram, and he has Nahor and Haran, and then basically, like, Terah winds up taking his son Abram and his daughter-in-law Sarai, who is not able to have children. That's an important thing to notice. And his grandson Lot, who was Haran's child, who died. They wind up saying, okay, we're leaving, we're going to go to the land of Canaan, which would have been descendants of Ham, the one who dishonored Noah and who was cursed by Noah. And instead they stop at this village of Haran, they settle there. And you see, one thing I was trying to note was like how long the lifespan of people was going. And you do see it whittling down a little bit. Because before you had like 900 years, you got 600 and so years, and then like it starts kind of whittling down. You see around 200, 230 being the average lifespan by the time that we get to this generation. I think that's significant because, again, God said in chapter 4, hey, I tire of these people. They can't live this long. In the future, they're going to live like 120 years. So there you go. We'll hop into Abram and Sarai in the next chapter, but that's what we got for chapter 11, and I hope you're enjoying this. And let me know if you got any comments, thoughts, or any revelations in this, or if you struggle with names too. And we'll see you next time.